I just look up and look straight, and I have this entrance to the kitchen, and you could just see this. It was like a light, walking out of the room, and I just look up and I see him. It was Jesus Christ himself. Okay, so I'm here to tell a miraculous story of what had happened to me several years ago. I think it's important to tell these kind of stories just so people, basically, I want to give people hope, is what my purpose is here for telling you these things. It's a very sacred experience that I had, but I feel like it's time to maybe start getting the word out there a little more. So in 2015, I had herniated some discs in my neck for while deadlifting. I went to the doctor. They gave me a cortisone shot. Approximately a week later, my lower back started just aching like crazy. It was awful. So I didn't know what had happened. They told me that I probably fractured my spine while deadlifting. Didn't make sense. My wife is very intuitive, and she basically said, she's like, I don't think it's a fracture. I think something happened with the cortisone shot, which she was right. But I went into several months. Like I think it was happened in October. In January, I finally got into the doctor to do blood tests, and they basically did some blood tests. A couple weeks later, they come back and say, okay, you have leukemia or multiple myeloma. We're not sure which one, but you have one of those cancers. So obviously I was devastated. My wife was devastated. They told me, it might be a few months before you get into an oncologist. So we finally got into an oncologist several months later. I think this is probably March. So they, I do a biopsy, a bone marrow biopsy, do all sorts of tests. They finally come back a couple weeks later and say, okay, you don't have cancer, relief, but you do have staph infection. So getting the shot in my neck gave me staph infection. It was kind of strange to travel down to my lower spine. Don't ask me how that, don't ask me how that kind of stuff happens. So I have staph infection. I go into the hospital because my back at this time is just brutal. I looked like a 105-year-old man walking around. Everything. I just remember standing up, and it felt like I was going to fold in half. There was like no support. It felt like, the best word to describe it was like brittle. Like it just gives me chills even thinking about it. It was excruciating pain. And so this has gone on for probably, I think we're at like month 6 now. So I go to the hospital and basically say, hey, I don't know what to do because my back is just destroyed. So the surgeon tells me that I need to have surgery because the staph infection had completely eaten one of my discs and had eaten part of the vertebrae on another. So I was missing like half of my vertebrae and a full complete disc. So they said they had to, do a fuse of the spine and then insert like a fake disc, I guess is what, I don't know, a disc replacement. So I remember walking out of the hospital and I asked my wife what she thought, and she was like, this is your thing. You gotta decide on what to do. But it was kind of strange because we both prayed about it and got a pretty intense revelation saying don't have surgery, which was at this point just really brutal. It was hard just because I felt like God was like picking on me, because I'd been in so much pain, and this surgery was it was a way to get relief from the pain. So I thought. And so I was devastated when I got the answer to not have surgery. So I just had to keep going and try and live my life in excruciating pain. So long story short, I ended up meeting some people that ended up becoming somewhat of, I guess I would call them like a spiritual mentor. That's the best way to describe them. The lady, her name was Christy. She's amazing. There was her and another guy named Michael started coming to the house and basically talking to me. Tried to bring some peace to my life, because at this point I was heavily addicted to painkillers. I was taking all sorts, like the heaviest of stuff, and I was taking more than I was supposed to. Let's just say that. And at this point, I was heavily addicted, and uh, I was. My wife was getting concerned. I was getting concerned because there were times where I would take him, and then my heart would ache. So I was in a really dark place, and I remember throughout the time. I know it sounds strange. I don't know if you've experienced things like negative spirits. That's the best way to put it. I don't know how else to say, but it felt like they were around me all the time, really constant. And it was just, it brought me down to like a really dark place. Didn't want to be around my family, didn't want to be around my kids. I just wanted to be by myself. And then I just had just negativity around me all the time. It was just awful. Christy coming in was a huge relief for that, because I felt like she brought in, I guess, just what you'd call the spirit, right? She brought in the spirit. She started coming over and doing what was called foot zoning. I don't know much about it, but the way I looked at it, it was like basically her trying to use her spiritual touch to bring, I don't know, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just, you look it up. And she was brought into our life through prayer. It was really strange. It was all through personal revelation that she was brought into our life. There was one day that, like, over the time, I just kept getting another impression from God saying, you need to quit the painkillers, right? And so I was devastated again, because I'm like, okay, you wouldn't let me get a surgery. You're not going to let me take painkillers. I felt like God was just being a big bully and telling me, you're just going to suffer, right? This is your lot in life. This is what you get to deal with for the rest of your life. And so I remember being very, very, very angry at God, because I felt I had, little kids. I couldn't play with them anymore. My wife, there were times where my wife had to call neighbors over to carry me out of the house because I couldn't walk. And it was just it was just bad. And so I was in a really dark spot. God told me, he said, hey, you need to quit pills. And so after, probably a week or so of contemplating if I could even do that, I just remember I'm like, okay, this is, God's, he's asking me to do something. And it's probably, at the time, it would probably be the hardest thing I'd ever done. Not only because I'm fully addicted to these things, but obviously now I'm going to have to deal with pain. So I end up quitting, and I ended up quitting him. And it was probably 2 or 3 days in that Christy and another guy named Michael came over. So this is where the story gets a little crazy. So they ended up coming over, and right as they showed up, like Christy, we opened the door, and Christy was like, oh, I guess she could just feel the negativity around. And I remember I told my wife, I was like, do not let them come over to the house. I do not want them here. And it was just like the negativity around me speaking. They were around me so much that it was like almost a part of me. It sounds weird, sorry. But I remember telling my wife, I was like, do not let them come over to the house. I do not want them here. And then Holly, thankfully, because Christy lives so far away, she was like, sorry, she's already almost here. I can't tell her to go. So they get to the door. I opened the door, and Christy was like, and Michael, I don't remember if Michael even noticed it at the time, but Christy definitely did. And sorry, I got like twitches and stuff. I have a mild case of Tourette's, so don't let that throw you off. Right as I opened the door, Christy was like, whoa, there's some bad stuff going on here. And I was just like, yeah, of course, I know. I've been dealing with this for months. And so we walk inside, and first things first, she's like, we need to get rid of this negativity. Like, I just feel like there's negative spirits and bad mojo around you like crazy right now. And I know I've been dealing with this for a long time. So they asked me to say a prayer, and I said no, I didn't want to, which that's never happened before. It was a little weird. So Christy finally says one. And as soon as the prayer was over, she was just like, I don't think that helped. And I was just like, yeah, I don't think it helped. I don't want you here. I don't want him here. And so we were talking, and I remember just staring at Michael, and I had this intense hatred for him, which was strange because it was strange because I actually really liked him. I liked both of them, but I remember staring at him and I was just probably like glaring at him. I probably wasn't myself. And it was just like, all right, I've had enough of this. We're getting rid of this crap. And so they offered to basically do a blessing on me, which is basically just laying their hands on my head and saying a prayer for me, right? And so Michael said, "Okay, I'm gonna give you a blessing." So he came over and gave me a blessing. And this, up to this point, I'd had probably I mean, not 1,000, but probably 60 blessings for my back. I'd had so many blessings of people trying to help me. So he came over and laid his hands on my head, and he just started doing the blessing. And sorry, this is where I get a little emotional sometimes. So right as he started doing the blessing, so I could feel people around me. It's really strange. But it was just the guy named Michael there, and I could feel his hands on my head. And then all of a sudden I could feel more people surrounding me. And I knew one of them was my grandpa, which had passed. So I knew my grandpa was there. And there was another man. And then I usually don't tell people this. Sorry, it's just so strange. But Michael, the archangel, was there. Don't ask me. I don't get it. I don't understand. But he was there, and it was like my eyes were shut, but I could see all this around me, and I could see the angel standing next to me, and it looked like, I don't know how to describe it. He had it looked like almost like Roman armor on. You could see his like shin guards. You could see a sword coming down the side, his like skirt, and he was huge. Like me sitting here right now, I was like up to like his middle thigh. No, not even that. Like I was probably up to, I don't know. He was huge. Like I estimated him to be around 10 feet tall, standing next to me. And so it was just this huge hulking man. And I don't know how, but I knew it was Michael, the archangel. And then I had my grandpa, and then I had Michael, and then I had another guy there. I don't really like to say who I think it was, just because I'm not 100% sure. I think I know who it was, but I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to say. And then I remember the feeling of all the negativity around me. It was like angry, almost like super mad that we were trying to get rid of them. And sorry. So it was at this point that I looked up, which I didn't look up because my eyes were closed the whole time. I was just had my head down like this, and I just look up and look straight, and I have this entrance to the kitchen, and you could just see this, it was like a light, walking out of the room, and I just look up and I see him, and it was just, sorry, it was Jesus Christ himself, and he was just like slowly walking over towards me. He had a white robe on, and he was just walking with this big smile. He just had this big smile, and he was walking up. Sorry. I don't know why I still get emotional. This is like 6-7 years ago, but he just slowly walks over to me with this smile on his face, and then I feel all the negativity, and I could actually even see him, like these balls of black. They were like flying towards my back door, like just bolting from me. It just looked like these balls of like black, and black energy is the best way to say it. But I could sense their fear. Like I could just like, oh my gosh, these things are terrified. And so they just like flying towards the back door. And then as the Savior walked up and stood by me, then all of a sudden the blessing was over. So I look up, and the real Michael was standing there, and I was like, I'm just looking around. Everybody's kind of looking around, and I was like, I think I'm gonna be okay. And so they came over, and the blessing, I asked him. The blessing was a couple minutes long, I'm guessing, is what he said. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said a couple minutes long, and to me, the whole process took like 7 seconds. It was super fast. So I thought that whole blessing was like 7 seconds long. So there was like a time discrepancy there. It was really strange. So I asked him, I was like, how long was that blessing? He's like, oh, it was like a couple minutes long. And I was like, wow. I was like, you are not going to believe what I just saw. And then, so I asked him, I was like, did you guys see anything? And I remember Michael was like, no, I didn't see anything. But halfway through that blessing, holy cow, the room changed. And I'm like, you have no idea you have no idea. And so I told him all the experience. A couple days later, like I was still struggling, right? I would still went up to the my back room, and I was just laying in bed all day long because I was in so much pain, and I was still like detoxing. And my wife Holly, who saved me through this whole thing. She came up and she's like, hey, we got a meeting with some of the church leaders. And I was like, nope, I am not going. I feel like complete dog crap. I am not leaving this bed. And basically I told her, I said, get out. I'm not going anywhere. And so she's like, okay, shuts the door, walks back. And then I guess something hit her. She said something was just like, get him to go. And so she turns back around, and, she's pretty hard-headed herself. So she's come in. She's like, all right, get ready. I don't care. You're going. Something wants you to be there. So you're going. And so we go. And the meeting itself was nothing special. We went to this meeting, and then we talked. And then the church was starting as we were getting ready to leave. And Holly's like, so are we going or staying? Or no, I said that. I said, are we going or staying? And she's like, oh, this is up to you. Like, you're the one in pain. I couldn't barely sit down. So I just got this feeling. I was like, you should stay. And so I was like, okay, I guess we're staying, which shocked Holly because she knew how much pain I was in. She's like, okay, well, let's go sit down. And so like halfway through, I don't even know if I made it halfway through. I was up and out of the church for like so many times because I couldn't sit. So finally I went out into what's called like a foyer area, and I sat on the couch, and I just was sitting there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to go home. Why, God? Why do you want me to be here? I don't get it. And so I'm sitting out there, and I look across the way, and there's this lady that looked like she was maybe in her, I want to say 50s, maybe 60s. And she just starts pointing up and talking to me. And we're probably, I'd say maybe like 30 feet away from each other. And she just keeps like pointing up and just talking. I was like, what is this crazy lady doing? And so I was just like, yeah, just trying to shrug it off because I didn't want to talk to anybody. I felt like garbage. And she just was adamant about talking to me. And so she finally gets up out of her chair and walks right over to me. And I wrote it down because it was so impactful. The very first thing she says to me, she said, walks up and looks at me and said, God has faith in you. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And she's like, God has faith in you. And I'm like, do you know who I am? Or like, do you have any idea what's going on? She's like, no, I don't know who you are. I've never seen you. I don't really care. God's just trying to tell me what to tell you. And so she goes on this like rant. Some of the things that she told me. So the first thing, God has faith in you. And then she said, Jesus wants you to know that he has faith in you. He has faith in you. He wants you to know he has faith in you. She said that several times. She said he suffered. This is the one thing that she said that really hits me. He suffered more than you have. You can do this. He loves you. There's like this big list, and I'll just try and sum it up. But he's like, God has faith in you. He is with you all the time. Know that God is with you all the time. Like, you can get through this. I know what you're going through is hard. Like, this is all the things that she's saying. She said, you have something to learn. You are going through this right now, because you have something to learn. She said, God is with you. It was just amazing. And like, she just goes off and she talked to me for probably like 3 or 4 minutes. God is by your side. He is with you all the time. He never left you. Like, because obviously I'd had those feelings like God doesn't care about me because he doesn't want me to have the surgery. He doesn't want me to take painkillers. And so she just said, yeah, another thing, he can change this in an instant. That's what she said. She says, she can change this in an instant. just know that God is with you. He can change this. You have something to learn. As soon as you have that to learn, you will be healed. And so I'm just like taken aback. I'm like, what is happening? This is so crazy. Never seen her before. Then she goes over and sits down, gets back up and comes over and hands me a piece of paper and said, he's trying to talk to you. Write it down. And so I just open up, my spirit and just like, okay, God, talk to me. And so he gave me this big, long list of things to write down. And it was basically the same things. The one that just keeps sticking with me is God has faith in you. Like, because I felt so weak. I was so weak trying to overcome addiction. My back hurt. And I was like, God has faith in me. I can do this. If God has faith in me, I can do this. And then the other thing she kept saying was, he's with you. He is with you. That was on a Sunday. Another full week had gone by, and I was back to like feeling depressed, going through withdrawals still a little bit. So I went to this thing with my wife, and I remember she asked me, I still remember this, I don't know why I remember this, but she asked me, she's like, do you think God's gonna heal you? And I just remember thinking, I was like, I don't know, maybe 10% yes, 90% no. I'd been in such excruciating pain for so long. This was in August, so this is like almost a year that I'd just been feeling like this. And I asked her, and she's like, I have about 90% faith that he's going to heal you, and about 10% I don't know. But so that night, I think it was that night. Yeah, it was probably that night. So it was a Saturday night. I remember I woke up. I woke up at around 4. I think it was around 4. I have it written down. And I just remember walking around the house, and like, because I couldn't sleep very good at night. And so I just walked around the house, and I remember I would just go snuggle with my daughters, because they were little. One was, let's see, I don't know, they're probably 8 and 5 or so. Yeah, so 7 years ago, I don't know. They were young. And so I remember I'd just go snuggle with them, and then I'd have to get back up because of the pain and walk around. I just remember laying back in my bed. I laid on my back, and I just remember laying on my back and starting to pray. I was like, God, please, I don't know what you have for me, but this is too much. And I remember, the day before, this is pretty pertinent. So the day before, I remember praying when I was talking to Holly about if he was going to heal me. And I remember I just got this really distinct revelation, said, okay, you need to be obedient, and you need to immerse yourself in him. That's what I got. Those are the answers. Immerse yourself in him and be obedient. And I don't know why, but that's what I had to learn. Because I'm not a very obedient person. But those were the two things. He laid them out. And I told Holly, I was like, okay, I think I know what I need to do. And she was like, what are you talking about? I was like, the things I need to learn. It's be obedient and immerse myself in him. And so the next day is when I was wandering around the house. And I remember I came back to my bed, and I laid on my back, and like it was really strange, because I felt like I fell asleep a little bit, but then I just woke up. And so it was like this weird, like, boom, I'm up. And then I was like, all of a sudden I was paralyzed. I was completely paralyzed. And my eyes were just sitting there. I was like, oh my gosh. Because I've had sleep paralysis before, which is strange enough, but that's a totally different feeling. This feeling was scary, but it was more peaceful, if that makes sense. So I was on my back, my hands were down my side, and I just woke up. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm paralyzed. What just happened? What did I do? And then all of a sudden my eyes just slammed shut. And I could not open my eyes. I couldn't move a single inch on my body. And then all of a sudden I felt my body. I don't know. It's hard to describe. I don't know if I literally levitated, but I felt myself pick up off the bed and raise. I estimate it felt like about 2 feet. Like I just went up. I think it was, I don't know. I think it must have just been like my spirit. I don't know. It sounds so strange, but I levitated off the bed, and I was remember just like as stiff as a board, just laying there, and then all of a sudden I saw these lights. They looked like little comets because they had tails on them. They were like orange and yellow, and they were flying right at me, and it was kind of scary, but I knew. I was like, oh my gosh, this is for my back. And I don't know how I knew that. I just did. And so I remember like feeling all this, and it was really strange. Like as I was floating, like I said, my eyes were shut, but I could see a little girl with really super curly hair standing next to me. She looked to be about 5 or 6, and I thought it was my one daughter, but it wasn't, you know. And so I'm like, oh, there's this little girl standing next to my bed, and I knew intuitively that it was a future daughter. I don't know how to tell you that. I just knew it was a future daughter. And so she was standing next to the bed, and I was just feeling like all these balls of light towards me. And then just as quick as it started, it stopped, and I slowly lowered back down onto the bed, and I was just laying there. And then it was, even though that I knew it was like a comforting feeling, it was still a little weird because I was completely paralyzed. And then I remember like slowly I got my feeling back in my toes, and then my ankles, and then, you know, my knees, and then it like slowly worked its way back up to my whole body except for my eyes. And so I'm like panicking. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I remember trying to pry my eyes open with my fingers, and I couldn't at first. And finally I got them open, and it was just black. And I'm like, holy cow, I went blind. I have no idea what's going on, but I just went blind. I remember just kind of panicking for a second, but then slowly like my sight started coming back, which is so strange. I don't understand any of it. It doesn't make sense to me. Super confusing. But I started to get the sight back. And then I remember looking over, and my one daughter was there, the older one. And then my wife was there. The daughter that I thought it might be wasn't in there. She wasn't in the room. She was asleep in her bed. But I just like remember laying there. I was like, what just happened? Like, this is the strangest thing I've ever experienced in my life. And so I slowly, like, it was just the strangest feeling. All of a sudden I got this feeling like I remember, like, because if I would arch my back, that's when it would hurt the worst, right? If I go like that, it just feels like, well, you're jamming a knife right in my spine. So I really faintly, I was like, just arched it, and I was like, holy cow, I don't feel any pain, which that has been, 10 months, you know? And so I remember arching, like moving around. I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? Because my back, I remember thinking that it felt like I had extra muscle in my lower back. It was really strange. Like, that's what I remember thinking. I was like, it feels like I got muscle in my back. Or like maybe even a back brace. And so I remember laying there, and I laid there for probably another hour, terrified to get out of bed, because I didn't know. I was just I was in no pain. That's all I knew. I was like, I'm just going to lay here. And so I laid there for probably another hour, an hour and a half. And finally my wife wakes up, and I was just like, hey, Holly, you're not going to believe what just happened. And so I tell her the story, and she's like, well, did you get up? I'm like, no, I'm too scared. And she's like, well, get up and move around. And so I just remember slowly getting up out of bed, and I remember I was arching, and I was like, holy cow, my back felt 100%. I was at 100% with my back. And it was like that. It was literally, it's not even overnight. It was like that. I remember thinking, I was like, wow, everything that one lady said is true, right? He can heal you in an instant. You have something to learn. As soon as you learn what you needed to learn, he will heal you. And so all those thoughts were just flooding in my head. And I was so emotional because my daughters came in, and I told them. I just remember, I'm like, hey girls, I'm healed. My one daughter was already there, and then the other one comes running in, because we used to play a game called Tickle Tackle. We would fight. That's what they called it, was Tickle Tackle. And I remember they came on the bed, and I told them, I was like, hey, guess what happened? Like, I'm healed. My back is fine now. And they were like taken aback. They're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, let's go. So we started wrestling, and I remember I still have a recording of it. It's just kind of funny to see because I looked like a skeleton at that point. It was like a skeleton, like wrestling with a couple of these little girls. And, but I remember that the very next day I went to the gym and was squatting and working out 100% because I knew that God had healed me. Why? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why he healed me, and he healed it in the most amazing way. And it literally, I know you're probably saying obviously, but it has changed my life. I went through a spiritual awakening, me and my wife, that year, because we basically have, yes, we were followers and lovers of God and Jesus, and ever since then it has been totally different. I don't know, he is like, I guess the best way to, it's like the born again, right? It's like a born again experience. And ever since then I have just been 100% devoted to God. Obviously I have my mishaps, and I screw up, and there's times I'm not obedient and times I'm not immersing myself in him, but it has changed mine and my family's life. It's unreal. So basically the reason why I am here telling the story is because I think, especially now more than ever, is people need stories of hope, and people need to know that God is real, and they need to know that he is there. And these kind of things can happen. Do they happen all the time? No. There's been, I've gone through other stuff where I wanted him to just fix it and he didn't. So I don't know why. I wish I knew. All I know is I needed this really terrible, awful experience, of going through the pain and the suffering and the addiction. I needed that to grow and become the person I am today. Without it, I would have just been the regular, skate by on life, and not really follow God. And so I am so grateful that I went through this. I remember my wife said that one time during the whole ordeal. She's like, I just get this feeling like you are going to be so happy you went through this. And I remember I was so mad. I was like, are you insane? Are you insane? Easy for you to say. This is awful. And so she was 100% correct. I am so grateful that I went through that suffering so that my relationship with God could grow. So like I was saying, the reasons are because of hope. And I know since I've started telling this story, because that was another thing that God said. He's like, you need to tell people what I did. Okay. And so I told him, yeah, heck yeah, I'll do it. So I told everybody I could at first. I probably got pretty annoying because I was like, telling everybody. But he basically wanted me to tell people that I was healed overnight, and he can do the same for them. And so ever since I told the story, I have had multiple people come to me and tell me amazing, miraculous stories that have happened to them. And so I am starting this channel so I can reach out and find those people and tell their miraculous stories. I want the people with stories of healing, stories of, you've seen near-death experiences. We've seen so many stories of miracles. I believe we are in a new age of miracles, and I want people to be able to see these miracles or hear from them firsthand. So that's why I'm creating this channel. I want people to be able to talk about the miracles and the amazing things they've seen. So if you are out there and you have an amazing story or a miraculous story, any type of miracle, doesn't need to be a huge, grandiose thing. I just want to hear everybody's miracles. That's really what I want. So if you have a story of a miracle, please reach out to me. I'll put all my contact info down below, and I just want to reach out, and I would love to just get to talk with you and hopefully put your story on this channel so we can reach hopefully millions and millions of people and bring hope to a hopeless world. So like I said, if you have a story, please reach out to me. Or if you know of somebody that has a story, we can do it anonymously, however you want. But I really want people to start seeing God work in their life. So thank you for watching and listening, and I hope to be hearing from you. See ya.